Hi, everyone. We're here in the offices of Toronto Global. I have the pleasure of interviewing Sumeet Trehan, a friend that I've known for several years, previously the general manager for Flexport Canada. We're going to be having a great conversation about his growth as a founder, starting Starboard, his journey here to Canada. And I'm really excited to have him come forward and tell his story. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, have you come into the office, have a conversation with you. I'm really excited that it's happening.
I'm super excited as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'd love to talk with you over the next little while about kind of your journey, how you started your career. We've known each other for
Yeah,
several years.
for several years now.
Yeah, it's been great. And
Feels like yesterday when we met for the first time.
I know. And so much has happened in that amount of time.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can use that as a jumping off point, kind of talk about the context of how we got to know each other. So I first met you when you were being, I think you'd just been recruited
Yeah.
to lead Flexport.
Canadian business. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So why don't you tell me about maybe a bit of around the background of the lead up to that, your career at that point, how you've been doing, and maybe as well, I think you got a phone call from the Flexport CEO that led to.
Not CEO, but a recruiter reached out to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think in terms of my journey before that, so I was born and raised in India. So started my career as a derivatives trader. Actually, was trading crude oil derivatives on night shakes. You make a ton of money in that job, but I hated that job because like it was basically sitting in front of a monitor and just trading all day. So I switched careers, started working for Vodafone, which is a big telecom company in their enterprise sales division. I loved traveling, loved talking to people. Was there for around 1.5 years. When this company called Maersk, which was a big logistics shipping company, they called me one day and said, "Hey, would you be interested in interviewing for our global leadership program?" And this was me, 24, 25 years old. I had no clue about shipping or logistics. But the only two things which got me interested. Number one was they said it's a very competitive program. We get like 5 people across the world 20 people across the world in this program. Okay, let me see if I can get into it. The second thing was they said they'll make me travel across the globe. And I had never been outside India by that point of time. So I said, okay, let me do this for 2 years and leave the job. So I got into the program. Ended up 6 years with them. Worked across India, Dubai, Singapore, Copenhagen with them. Rose from an account executive to head their freight forwarding business for South Asia. And then I moved to Switzerland to do my MBA. Post my MBA, I started working for Boston Consulting Group in Denmark. I was advising CEOs of large shipping companies, freight forwarding companies, and that was a great job. But what I really missed was being back in action. I was an operator by nature, so I couldn't like just live with like building a slide deck and letting people do the fun part of it. So for one good day, like a Flexport recruiter reached out, say, "Hey, would you be interested in like setting up and scaling a Canadian business," and start the interview process. Fortunately, I got through the interview process and moved to Canada, to Toronto, set up and scale the business. So that was the lead up to our first call.
Yeah, I know. I remember that very well. I think it was more towards probably the tail end of COVID. But when you were making the move here, what did it feel like? What kind of feelings were you having coming? The idea of coming here to Canada, being based in Toronto, setting up the team. What was that? What was that like?
So there are two elements in that question. Was like moving to Canada and to Toronto, like a new geography, new country, new continent for me, and then like setting up and scaling the business. So I think this probably sixth or seventh country now, I've lost count, where I'm living in the last 10 years. So it was actually more natural for me to switch countries every 2 years than not to switch countries. So like moving into Canada was always exciting. Hey, I'll explore a new country, new culture. Maybe I'll live there 2 years and move out. That was the original thought process there. So that was like a fun part of it to me actually. Moving in middle of COVID was not fun because just after I left my job at BCG, I had to move back. I had to like go back to India for a couple of weeks. My mom was super sick. And at that point, Canada had banned all flights moving from India to Canada. So I had to take this long route through Europe and come here. That was not fun, but like otherwise it was all fun moving into here. The whole thing about setting and scaling a business sounded like fun to me, but there was also fear inside me because I'd not done it in the past. Like every role before this, I'd moved from strength to strength. Like working within Maersk, every new role I had some legacy in the company. I had some experience of doing something similar, and I was building on that. This was the first time I was doing something where it was a completely empty plate given to me. So I was super excited. I had like ton of ideas. I'll do this. I'll do that. But there was also fear. Would I fail? Would I be able to do it? So those are the feelings I had at that.
On that kind of topic of frankly fear and challenging yourself and such, you're at Flexport for a couple of years here, leading the Canadian business, growing and scaling it, and I've had the pleasure of supporting you and witnessing that growth. When did you start to feel or have the idea about what your next step would be, right, leading to kind of Starboard? Did you get that itch again? Were you having conversations with people here in the ecosystem in Toronto that led you to believe that maybe the time is right to kind of start a startup?
There are element of both the things which you said over here. But I'll probably answer that question with a story. So, like you said, like I started in probably middle of COVID, not probably tail end of COVID. It's 2021, it's still middle of COVID, I would say, when I started here. And if you know, supply chain was in crisis that point of time. So if you don't remember if you don't know anything about supply chain, you remember the ship which was stuck in middle of Suez Canal.
Yes.
Almost everybody remembers that thing. So those are the crises we're facing with. Like there were supermarkets which are empty because goods couldn't ship from China into North America. And luckily, I rode on those tailwinds when we were growing the business in Canada, because like there's a shortage of demand, shortage of supply. So if you had the demand, if you had the supply, you can sell very easily. So in the first 2.5 years, we actually scaled the business from almost zero to, I would say, somewhere between 70 to $100 million top line business. We built a solid team over here in Toronto. We also had a team in Vancouver. But then 2023 happened, and that was, I think, to me, that was a pivotal time, and I would say COVID actually eased out completely. And with that, the supply chain crisis eased out. So the price of a container fell from like $30,000 to like less than $3,000 there. And what happened was very astonishing. In the first 6 months of 2023, I started losing a huge chunk of my book of business without going to specific numbers. And I had three hypotheses like why this was happening. One was probably it was a me problem. Second, it was maybe a sales marketing issue, maybe a sales account management teams didn't know how to sell or to retain customers. And third was neither a me problem nor a sales account management problem. Then we're probably solving the wrong problem for the wrong set of people out there. Like logically, you can only work on those three hypotheses out there. When we looked at the data and we tried different things out, the conclusion was probably not me problem, luckily. Also probably not a problem with the sales and account management team. And that led me to say, okay, are we actually solving the right problem for the right set of people? So I went back to all those like 30 odd customers we had lost in, I don't remember the exact number, but like all the customers we had lost in the first 6 months of 2023. And when I spoke to them, I had three key realizations. So number one was, most of the times we lost business not to a larger competitor of ours or not to a traditional incumbent, but we lost business to a small mid-sized freight forwarder. Second was, we did not lose business on price. Most of the times we lost business at a same or a higher price point to our competition. And this was one and two, like combined, was very strange, because you are in a commoditized industry where price is usually the biggest decision factor, and you are losing business to a smaller competitors who have no technology and at same or higher price point than you. So when I asked the owners of these companies, the VPs of these companies, the consistent answer which I got was, what we want a freight forwarder to do, and Flexport was a freight forwarder, is to move goods from point A to point B, and we find the competition does a better job than you, and that's why we decided to switch. So then we moved to the competition. I met some of these players, and again, what I realized was, like, I realized a lot of things, but in a nutshell, what I realized was, these small and mid-sized players have been able to hold their ground against larger players. So freight forwarding is a very strange market. The biggest player in the market does not owns sub 1% market share over there. So it's like they're like 80,000 SMB freight forwarders who control 80 to 90% of global trade. And no larger player, whether tech driven or non-tech driven, has ever been able to take market share away from them. But the industry is so commoditized that the number of SMB players have kept growing from like probably 10, 20,000 2 or 3 decades, where they've grown to 80,000. So there's not enough market for anybody. And my key realization was that if you can unlock the power of technology and scale for a subset of these freight forwarders, you give them an unfair advantage. So there's a natural consolidation in the industry taken place. So that, I think, so to me, the key moment, like to come back to the long answer to your question is like, when I met some of these competitors and I described to them what I thought we can build, and there were 2 or 3 of them, and they said, we want to partner with you to build this. And we'll put all our resources at our disposal. We'll also put some money in the company, which you're going to build, but we want an equity in the company. And when I heard that answer consistently, and imagine, this is a very old school industry. Most players in the industry would say tech cannot do anything. And when these people said, we are ready to do that, to me, that was the key moving point to say like, hey, I should do that. And parallelly, like, you had been introducing me to a lot of founders, you had been introducing me to a lot of network, and I was talking to a lot of founders, a lot of operators, some of our common friends. And that was also inspirational because I had seen them build their own businesses. I had seen them taken these, like, leave lucrative careers and do this. And that again put fuel in the fire. And there was like a time in December when everything combined together, and I said, okay, if I don't do this today, somebody else is going to do it. And that's when I decided to take the jump.
Gotcha. You're obviously very analytical, thoughtful person, right? I've known this in the years that I've known you. And as you described it, all these factors coming together, you've realized that this is kind of the moment to make the leap. Did you feel that feeling again of like a little bit of fear of going from a larger company, or you just felt that drive? Everything was lining up. You're like, this is a moment to jump in.
Oh, obviously, there's a lot of fear. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's like jumping into a pool. Like let's say, like, you're not even told, like, take an ice step,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of fear till you take the jump. And actually, interestingly, the moment I resigned from Flexport, a lot of things which would discourage me from doing this started happening. So I was parallelly talking to a lot of VCs. Like in January of last year, I think January and February of last year, like right that time I started resigned. And till the 1 month, I think around 60 VCs rejected us. So I mean, that wasn't the best way to start building your own business. You heard rejections after rejections.
Yeah.
We tried to acquire customers, and like, I was the solopreneur at that point of time. My co-founder joined a bit later, and there was a lot of rejections on phone. So like all the tailwinds which I came up with, like
Yeah.
just before resigning, was like, spoke to a couple of VCs, everybody seemed interested. Spoke to a couple of customers, people wanted to put in money in the company, and suddenly everything, like, okay, did I take a wrong decision here? So, but I think so there was a lot of fear because of that. But at the same time, I think something inside me told me, like, if I don't do this, I'll regret it for my entire life. And I thought, like, okay, I'll make it work somehow here, and that kept me going.
Yeah. So that feel, being rejected, so many times, I know, especially in my line of work as well, right? Trying to reach out and connect to new people, it's part of the job. Would you say, like, how did you overcome that? How did you overcome, those rejections? Did things start to click into place once you realized what some of the, maybe people were kind of saying no thanks because of this? And did you find a consistency in their responses that led you to getting a yes further on?
Yeah, there are, I think, three things to it. One is, like, yes, rejections are good because every rejection, like, if the person who is rejecting your VC, who is rejecting your customer, it gives you a reason why.
Right.
So the customers who rejected us basically changed the trajectory of our whole product. Like, without going to details, what we had, the original idea was very different than what we are building today. I think we've already taken 2 pivots since then. So those rejections were great. Had we actually been lucky and got a few customers by chance who would have adopted the product, and then it would be had been very costly to change the pivot now. So I think those rejections were great by customers. The VCs who rejected us were also great because that helped us reshape some of, like, that helped us reshape some of the business plans of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, especially in the VC rejection, there was a time early in my fundraising cycle when I would try to tailor my story to what the VC would want to hear. And at a certain point, I gave it up. I said, like, this is not what I started this company for. This is not why I'm doing this. I'm going to do exactly what I feel is right, which means I will listen to everyone. And if I think that is logical, I'll take their input into account. But if I don't think it's logical, I'm not going to build a business because this is what this VC likes or this is what that VC likes. I'm going to do exactly what I feel like. And the moment I had that attitude, which is like probably like some people might even say a bit of brash attitude, like the moment I had that attitude that, hey, I'm going to do what I feel is right and I don't care about anybody else, things suddenly started clicking in. Like, I remember there was this one weekend where I thought, okay, I'm done with it. I'm going to do what I feel is right, because at least then I'm living what I want to build. Even if I fail, it's on my terms, not on somebody else's terms.
Right.
We closed our first pre-seed round within 2 weeks. After that, it was an oversubscribed round. And since then, I think the one principle which we hold as a founding team is that we are building for customers. So if customers give us feedback, we take it very seriously. But apart from that, we are going to do what we think is logically right in terms of building the business.
Well, on that, as you're kind of settling into that, idea of doing what's right and finding that click and fit, I guess, with the market, was it because of the kind of the insights you're seeing in the industry, the increasing use of AI tools, the opportunity that you found in logistics? Was there, tell me more about that thesis maybe that drove you to say this is the right path to go, and then finding that positive response from the VCs and other partners?
So when we started company, like there was no tailwinds for AI in our industry at least. Right? Like the AI had become a talking point in other industries and everything. And in fact, both like the viewpoint in the tech industry was AI would be adopted by enterprises, not by small mid-sized business. In fact, a lot of VCs rejected us because we are very focused on small and mid-sized segment of the market out there. But logically, what I felt was like in our industry, freight forwarding is a super thin margin business. It's a 5% net margin business. The biggest cost is the cost of humans. So if you can basically help them increase productivity and reduce that cost there, they would make more money. Selling more money is probably the easiest thing in the world. So it should click in. Like
Right.
that was the thesis. Logically, it made sense to me. It was very difficult initially. Like most freight forwarders, a very old, antiquated industry, would not understand the concept of AI. They would probably not buy in as well. But what they did buy in was like, hey, I want to make more money. I want to grow. I want to like, so AI was just like a factor of helping them grow. And even today, like AI is a factor in like the key goal is to unlock growth for our customers, to unlock productivity gains for our customers. It can be through AI, sometimes it can be without AI as well. So that was the beginning point. I think over the last 3-4 months, we are really feeling the tailwinds coming in our favor. I was calling the customer, first call with a client last week, pretty big freight forwarder out there. And the call began with the CFO of the company saying, we know AI is going to change this industry. And we would rather jump early on with the right partners than wait and see. So this is I think only the last 3-4 months we're actually seeing the tailwind effect of that coming in. But when we started, there was actually no AI tailwind effect impacting us. If anything, like it created more doubts in our customers whether this would work or not work at that point of time.
So seizing on that concept of the tailwinds, the increasing adoption of AI in industries, which, as you said, people may not have been expecting or anticipating, especially so soon. Tell me more. I want to dive more into that topic of how Starboard is leveraging AI for your customers. What challenges are you finding that you're solving? You mentioned kind of the human element, but maybe we can talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can answer that. But before, like, do you know what a freight forwarder does?
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Well, I usually start at that point because we're discussing freight forwarding. I think some people in our audience may not actually understand what who a freight forwarder is. So I think the best way to understand what a freight forwarder does is to compare them to travel agents. So like a travel agent buys and sells airline tickets or hotel rooms. Similarly, like a freight forwarder buys and sells slots on shipping companies, airlines, trucking companies, anything which crosses an international border. How is this one key difference? When you buy a hotel room, 9.9 out of 10 times you don't call back Expedia or your offline travel agent because everything goes well.
Yeah.
In our industry, every transaction involves 15 to 20 parties. There are 50 to 75 emails or phone calls exchanged to make that happen. And freight forward is that entity who makes sure this relay race between these 15 20 parties goes smoothly. So it's a very operationally heavy middleman business out there. So that's what a freight forwarder does. And as I described, you could imagine it's a very manual industry. So there's a lot of work being done on emails, on phone calls. There's a lot of old ERP systems being used, which are built in 90s, have not been upgraded
Right.
since then. But it's a huge industry. Like freight forwarders spend around $0.5 trillion on logistics globally. There are 80,000 freight forwarders. They spend $300 billion on human wages globally. So a huge amount of spend on that out there. And one reason technology has not penetrated this industry is because there's no standardized process in this industry. The default mechanism is emails and phone calls. Now with AI coming in for the first time, there's a connective layer between traditional tech, which is a database or what is tech? Tech is nothing but basically a database with which you can pull out data from, input data and delete data in. But you need a database to start using computers or doing anything with that.
Yeah.
There was no way to create a database in our industry so far because every customer has their own database design, they have own processes. But with AI, we get a connective glue, which can convert this unstructured data, which is lying in emails, in voice, in WhatsApp chats, in WeChat, into this structured database, which can then unlock the power of productivity gains for any freight forwarder. So that's how the use cases we are seeing. So our biggest use cases is we plug our bots or our agents into the email system today of a freight forwarder. They read any incoming emails and they convert that into structured data, and then we use that to process shipments in in real time and increase the productivity of freight forwarder.
Awesome. I mean, it's as you said. I mean, I think there's tailwinds in the industry from multiple perspectives, and we haven't even. I mean, we talked a little bit about COVID as when you're moving over here. We'll talk about I'm very interested in your take on kind of Trump and tariffs and that question, but maybe we can like pivot a little bit to talk about place. So we're here in Toronto Global's offices. You're based. You live in Toronto. Um, I'm gonna ask you. How has it been being based here in Toronto? Maybe influenced your the growth of the company, and the opportunities that you're seeing.
So I always say Toronto is a big city and a small city at the same time. And big city is because it is a big city, but small city is like like there's a small network of founders, operators, investors who are very well connected and a very close group here.
Mm,
Um, and and the good thing is if you are a part of that network, there's almost unconditional support from that network to help you out in building whatever you're building. So to me, like, and probably I have to thank you to open doors to that network for me. But like that helped me connect with the right set of operators, founders, which I probably would have been very difficult if I was changing cities every 2 3 years, which I was doing before this. So that I think was key for me to like have that entrepreneurial spirit inside me unlocked because I could see success stories in me in real life. It was not like listening to a podcast. I could sit next to a VC or great founder and see this guy has actually built or this girl has actually built $1 billion business. That was really inspiring. So that is number one. Like here, I think number two is like Toronto is right now, I would see a cradle of amazing talent. I always say like Toronto is what New York was in 1920s, 1930s, take away the regulatory aspect of that. But people like amazing talent is flowing in from different parts of the world and they want to achieve amazing things in their life. That's why they're leaving their homes to come down here. And it's great to be in company of those people and build with those people because some of these people, whether we succeed or fail, but some of these people are definitely going to succeed and create multi-generational businesses out there. And the third thing is like Toronto is part of the bigger NAFTA ecosystem.
mhm.
Um, it almost feels part of not Canada alone, but being part of the US, Canada, and Mexican ecosystem. Like it's very easy to access customers sitting here,
Mm.
south of the border, investment south of the border. So it's a very global city in that aspect, and I think that's been also key for us to build Starboard here.
That's great to hear. We're circling closer. You mentioned U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So we're circling closer to conversation on tariffs. But just talking about place, talking about people, and the people that we have, coming here in Toronto, and in my role, supporting them to grow. Um, Tell me about how you're building your team. Right? Maybe you can start with what's the structure of your team now. You mentioned having your co-founder in San Francisco, if that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, would like to hear more about that.
So we're basically building. I think we're basically going to have our team structured in two places, Toronto and New York. So Toronto is going to be our engineering hub. So we are hiring most of all of our engineers here. So our first set of engineers are already here, and we are hiring the next set. If you go to our website, you'll see open job openings there. If anybody wants to apply, great. Please send me a DM.
Eh,
So we are basing an engineering team here. Like I said, it's a great set of amazing talent here. Our commercial team is probably going to be based in New York because the largest set of our customers are south of the border, and we want to be closer to our customers so that New York and LA and Oakland are the biggest hub of our customers. So probably the commercial teams are going to be based there, and that's again an advantage of being in Toronto because there's almost open borders between Canada and US.
Yeah.
You can easily travel, you can easily sell, you can easily buy. So that's how we are structuring our team right now.
Gotcha. We talked about, your feelings in terms of launching Starboard, that itch for challenge and such. As you're scaling the team, everyone talks about, hiring the right people, most important decisions. Tell me more about kind of what you're looking for in people that you'd like to join Starboard.
Yeah. First is we have a very lean team. Like till now we're only 6 people
Mhm.
in the company. And my personal ambition is that if we succeed, like at least till we make this $1 billion company, we want to be in double digits. So we don't want to build like a 3,000 person company here, like where, but that means the people we hire have to be really top class. Like we say we want to hire a set of black ninjas who are like best in their trade. So the qualities which we look for, giving you that context, is so the number one and the most important quality is hunger. How hungry, whether you're an engineer or you're a commercial person, how hungry you are, what is your ambition in life. If your ambition is life in is big, like, then even if you don't have the skill sets, you learn the skill sets to be part of a great journey. And Starboard is a perfect place to be because we are chasing something really big over here. So that's number one. Second is your agility to learn. Like we have a strong hold on the final vision of what we want to build, but we actually don't know what's the next step is going to be. Like it's a like building a startup is like an experiment. You do something, you fail, you learn, and you do. So you need to learn from your failures. It's okay to fail, but you need to learn from your failures pretty quickly. And the third thing which we look for is resilience, because there's going to be a lot of failures in the way. I would say we have a pretty tough working environment. Like we work almost 10 to 14 hours per day. We work like 6 days a week. Like if we get one day off, we feel pretty lucky out there. So you need a lot of resilience to survive and grow in this environment. And that's why we say we need to hire our black ninjas who can make this company to what we really um, want to build. And then finally, of course, there's an aspect of technical skills. Hey, if you are a coder, you need to know something. Like you need to have certain technical skills to be, and then you can learn from there. There's some base level skills required, but like to me, like at least when I interview people or I meet people, those are top three skill sets which I look for.
You mentioned kind of next steps, resiliency, looking ahead. Let's talk about kind of the current environment that we're in right now with the Trump administration, conversation around tariffs. How are you seeing when you're having internal conversations about the growth of the company? Tell me about how you see the current situation, with the US, the market growing, and how maybe Starboard is uniquely positioned to kind of lean into this sort of I don't want to say chaos, but the exciting environment.
So our founding thesis actually is there's not going to be a lot of chaos
Okay.
in the global trade. Like if you actually go to our website and read the blog on our founding thesis, it clearly says we believe the chaos in global trade, and this is just the beginning, is going to increase, and there's going to be a fundamental shift in global trade flow. So currently, like the biggest trade flows are from China into North America, China into Europe, China being the major producing country in the world, and the world buying from that. We believe that's going to shift. It's going to be a multi-sourcing strategies most companies would adopt. So manufacturing will move out of Asia into probably Southeast Asia, India, Latin America, Africa. But global trade is not going anywhere. It's just that where you buy from will change. But yes, we'll see a lot of near sourcing start happening. And what does that mean for global trade and global logistics? There will be a set of ports which will be oversaturated. There will be a set of logistics system which will be oversaturated. There will be the global processes will become more convoluted because now you're sourcing 50% from one country. So it's still a more standardized process. As you move to like 15 country sourcing, it becomes super difficult to manage. And you'll need more and more humans to make sure this is successful. But at the same time, there's not enough like there's not enough margin in global trade to pay for that increased manpower which is required. So even today we are seeing a typical freight forwarding operator job or a typical, like you had the US labor strike there. Like it's not that companies don't want to pay workers, it's just that there's not enough money to pay them, and like you can only pay how much you earn. So there's increasing need of technology and automation because wages are saturated, cost of living is increasing, so you need to pay your workers more. But so either you reduce the number of workers you have, or you increase, or you cut down your margins, and there's not enough margin to cover. So that's it. I think for us that's the tailwind. There's going to be increasing shift towards automation and AI to make sure that people who are in the industry get paid a decent wage and they can make their ends meet and they have a good standard of living. But that also means the number of people we require in the industry is going to reduce. But those who will be in the industry will make a much more comfortable living than they do right now.
Right. So in this moment of opportunity that you're seeing a chaos kind of seizing the opportunity from chaos, can you talk more about what you see? What's maybe generally speaking, or however much you'd like to dive into it, what's next for Starboard? The kind of the projects that you have on the horizon. Is there any kind of several milestones that you're looking to hit over the next year or two?
Yeah, so we are at a state where we have de-risked certain things and there's still certain things at risk. So we have a product which is pretty solid. We have proved in the first use cases we are able to improve productivity by 50 to 70% on our ocean product. And now we want to double down on that. So So if you look at our blogs, if you go to our online content, you'll see we're making increasing footprint, because now we are actively reaching out to sell our product, to actually educate market on what AI can do out there. So first exciting thing is we'll have a lot of brand content, we'll have a lot of active outreach, we'll be participating in a lot more conferences now to make sure that we are able to create awareness in the community of our customers that this is what AI can do, and then a choice is up to them whether they want to adopt it or not. Second is we're going to be double down on product build. So right now we only support text. So our AI bots are able to read emails, WhatsApp messages, etc. We are super excited to basically start building voice products where our AI agents will be able to call trucking companies, call shipping limousine companies, follow up. And to me, that's next level, almost science fiction. But that's what we're going to build over the next 6 to 8 months and launch before the end of the year out there. And third is talent. Like we are expanding our teams, and we are um, logistics and freight forwarding has never been the industry which attracted the best talent. So to me, it's a personal mission that we get the best AI researchers, ML talent, the best tech talent into this industry, so we can up level the quality of the product to a level which is like never seen in this industry. So those are three exciting things which I'm really looking forward to us.
Well, that's awesome. Speaking, so we were talking about kind of the company's growth, but I'm curious. I'm gonna turn back maybe to kind of a personal perspective. As you've been doing this for the past year and change, and having these conversations and such, how are you seeing yourself grow through this process? Right. You mentioned earlier on in the conversation moving around a lot. Having that kind of experience. Yeah. How do you see yourself having grown in this journey so far? Because this is your first startup.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think overall, I think the overall highlight was there's a lot of element of unlearning things more than learning things in this journey. So a lot of things which you traditionally thought were true in a corporate job are probably not so true here, and some things which you not are not true are true. So like to me, I think the first major learning was to trust your instincts. Like I said, like the moment we said, okay, we'll do what we feel right and not listen, and like maybe listen, but like not follow every piece of advice we are given in. It unlocked a lot of things which seemed seemingly impossible. So like I think over the last 1.5 years, to me the biggest change is I trust my instincts more than I have ever have in whole of my career so far. I think the second instinct is really to grow people and to also learn from people around you. Like we're a very lean and mean team, but like that only because I've seen people around us who joined us grow a lot, and I've learned a lot of things from them. So there's an element of coaching which was always there in a leadership role, but that's like exponentially different when you are building a startup here. And I think third thing is like just the level of stakeholders and the variety of stakeholders I have dealt with over the like I was joking to my wife, like I have a bigger network now when I'm actually out of job than I had ever in when I was doing all those attractive jobs before that. Like, but that has made me learn a lot from how to manage very senior stakeholders, how to manage some very important people. Everybody has their own egos, but like still do what you feel is right.
Hmm.
To me, like earlier, I would under those conditions sometimes agree with somebody who's like super senior to me and just do that. But now I think the art which I've probably started picking up a bit is how do you still do what you feel is right, but at the same time don't spoil that relation and manage the senior stakeholders there.
Right. Understood. Well, I mean, that's fantastic kind of insights, and kind of talking about your own growth. Maybe as we kind of finish off the conversation, what would you say, to some people that might be listening in terms of, maybe they're thinking of younger entrepreneurs, or people are thinking of following your footsteps in the sense of launching their first startup. Is there any one piece of advice, or maybe even frankly, a hindsight thing? And there's been some stuff that you've touched on, but any kind of particular thing or advice that you would give out to other people that are starting of thinking, founding their own thing?
Yeah, I think a couple of pieces. Right? One is like, don't do this because it feels glamorous or it feels the next thing which everybody around is doing. Starting a company is probably the most insane thing you can do. So, and mostly people do it because they don't realize how insane it is. And I was also one of those people. So like unless you're really mission driven or you really feel like I felt okay, this is the problem I'm ready to dedicate my life on. Like don't do this. You're better off doing whatever else you're doing, because the money never works in your favor. If you do the mathematics, like there's 99% chance you'll fail. So the weighted average of that is always going to work better but if you are doing this, I think then my advice is, one is like trust your instincts. If you're doing this, you know your business better than anybody else. Like listen to everyone. You should not be like not listen to everyone. Process every piece of advice which is given to you, but then trust what your instinct says and make the final decision, because it's your success and your failure, your team's success and your team's failure, and you need to be hold yourself to accountable to that. And the second thing is build a network. It's a very lonely journey. It's almost like climbing Everest alone. And sometimes just having a pat on the back, saying, hey, I know you can climb 10 more steps, or I'm here, I'll not let you die. Even if the other person can't do anything, is more than enough to let you going. So build a network and build a pool of supporters who cheer you towards success. That's going to be emotionally and mentally super important as you take part in this journey.
That's very thoughtful advice. And I have to say again, I mean, having gotten to know you over several years, seeing the journey that you've made, building Flexport in Canada, launching Starboard, and having this success that you've had, it's been tremendously gratifying to kind of see someone like you succeed. And I think, going ahead, you're going to have more wonderful milestones and celebrations as your company continues to grow. Very interesting times ahead, right? With the whole conversation on the Trump administration and tariffs. But as always, I'm very happy to continue supporting you and what you're building.
Thank you so much, and thanks to you and Toronto Global for being so supportive to us. And yeah, we're just getting started, so let's see where the journey is headed.
Absolutely, let's see. All right,
so much.
My pleasure.
Yes.